Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. So today is December 2nd, 2023. Unbelievable. End of another year. And we'll see what 2024 brings. So once again, we'll just wait, see if any people show up. Because last time I was supposed to have somebody on and they didn't show up. So I had to do a lot of talking. And actually, as I'm getting older, I notice my immune system is not as good as it used to be. Not just in how quickly I recover after exerting myself, but whenever I had COVID earlier this year, and it took me several weeks to beat that. And then I just left Veracruz, and I was up hiking in the hills a lot. And I must have gotten some insect bites. And there was one on my back. And as I was coming back to Mexico City, I woke up one morning and I had a lump, like my sister, who's the doctor, she sent me the medical term for it, but it was like shaped like a volcano, and it was very painful, and this was not a pleasant experience. So it's one of these things where I hope that my immunity would beat it, but it's not. And it was getting worse and worse. I sent a picture to her. I said, "Hey, does this look pretty? What do you think I should do with this?" And she's like, "You need to do something." So I actually got some antibiotics. I was swimming in the ocean here, hoping that it would solve the problem. And it did help, because what it did was it filled up with all pus, and it started to shape like a volcano. And when I started swimming in the ocean, it started erupting. So I would have this lime green pus, coming out of the wound. But it's all right. But with the antibiotics, that was the boost that my body needed, I think, to beat it. So we'll see. But it's amazing how these things can impact you emotionally and physically, because I was tired a lot from this. So, and since YouTube started deleting my videos again, I don't think I've made a video since then, except to say that they were deleting my videos. And it's a little frustrating, because you hear these people saying that this isn't an issue anymore, but they're still censoring. They're still deciding what you can talk about and what you can't talk about. And I've been saying this for several years, that evil never stops, never quits. What they do is they keep probing, right? They keep probing, keep probing, keep probing, come from this way, that way. And eventually they're going to find a crack. And they wear you down. That's what they plan on doing. They plan on wearing you down. And this is why you have to be, force has to meet force, or you lose. And someday people in this world are going to have to figure this out, or they're not. Like the people who were told to get on those trains, most of them got on. I've talked about this with Dan before. I mean, how often do we have stories where people actually fought back and resisted? In Poland, and I think it was the ghettos in Warsaw, they fought back. Not sure. So I asked some people if they were interested in coming on. I said 9 o'clock Eastern time. So I usually go on a couple minutes early just to make sure everything's working. And it's 9 o'clock. So I'll give it a couple minutes here. So I was up in the hills of Veracruz, and I don't know if I told this story or not. I've been in Mexico for about 14 months now. And I was in Mexico, well, the first place I arrived in Puerto Vallarta. And I was there a few days, and then I went to Mexico City. And I was in Mexico City a couple months. And then I came down to where I am right now. I came down to the beaches in Oaxaca, which is all the way down on the Pacific coast near Puerto Escondido. And I was here for a couple months earlier this year. And then I went back to Mexico City to see the jacaranda, and that's when I got sick. And I was pretty much bedridden for about 4 or 5 weeks. And I missed most of the jacaranda. And then I was in Mexico City, and I got a message when I was praying. I got a message saying, you need to basically take some serious, make some serious changes. And that included leaving Mexico City. So I went to the mountains of Veracruz, and there's lots of small villages up there. So I went to one where I had traveled through before, and I had always wanted to go back. So I went there. I was there 4 months, and I basically focused on repairing myself physically, mentally. I am in a tiny village on the Pacific, and I'm using satellite Wi-Fi. Now, hopefully it holds up. Okay, I think I'm back. Unbelievable. Let me just see if I am linked up. Yeah, that's the other thing that happened is something happened to my computers several weeks ago. And down in Mexico, what I've found is with anything that I've bought in Mexico, it is, and I'm sorry, Mexico, but this is just my experience so far, whether it's electronics, shoes, clothes, in stores, not handmade stuff. But what I've found I found that things do not last very long for me. I've gone through 2 pairs of shoes that I bought in Mexico, and I think this is why. I think because the Mexican disposable income is so much lower than the United States. The products that they bring into Mexico are of a much lower standard, much lower quality to meet the price points. And so that translates. They know that they have to sell at a certain price. They know that they have to, have a certain price to make it for. And so you get garbage compared to, I had one computer fail here. I took it to get it repaired and it failed on me again in Mexico City. This was a couple of years ago. So I bought a Chromebook through Mercado Libre, which is like their Amazon. And that computer lasted maybe 2 years. I think a year, actually, just over a year, just died. And I'm on this Chromebook. This Chromebook I bought good 10 years ago. In fact, this Chromebook I'm on right now is so old that Google, it's a Chromebook, so it's made for to work with Google. It's so old they won't even do updates on it anymore. So I know it's on its. At some point, it's going to get to the point where it won't even start and operate with their systems. And I think it's reaching end of life pretty soon with what's been going on. So it's in the video. It's in the description. There's a little chat box, and basically, if you want to join, there's a link to join to StreamYard. So click on there if you want to come on, and that will redirect you to come in. And it's going to ask you for your name. You don't have to put your real name. You can put whatever name you want if you don't want to be known by your real name. So you could use Superman. So Dan uses sometimes I will put well, I'm not even going to say it. So you'll have to go. I'm not even sure it shows up, but it's a take on Porky's. So now StreamYard, I think they want you to use a Chrome product. That's what because when I tried to use my Mac, I had to download the Chrome version for Apple, for the MacBook. So I have that, and I would use the MacBook, but the problem is my MacBook, I think the microphone's going on that. And so I've had people say that they couldn't hear me. So that's why I'm trying to use this thing. Paging, Dr. Jake. Paging, Dr. Jake.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I am breathing, man.
Good. Good.
Yeah. So I don't want to say too much, so I'll let you do the talking. So let me ask you, Jake, what are you grateful for today?
Health and loved ones, people that I know, and I mean, family, of course, but the opportunities I've had, and just being physically functional, being healthy and not having any crises, those are the big ones.
Excellent. Yeah, those are good. I'll tell you, I know it sounds trite because you always hear people say, oh, health is the most important thing. But until you have a health crisis, I don't think you really ever to appreciate that saying. Because, when you're 20, 30, 40, however old, and you've always been in good shape, in, good health, how can you reconcile that? Yeah, you see people getting sick, but that's never going to be you, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
no, I think that, but also, I mean, I don't know what made me say that. I guess just the fact that if I did get sick, I would be fucked. And so I don't know. I'm just glad to be healthy and doing stuff and everything's going all right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially now, you hear about, I know people, there's a lot of people who refuse to believe this, but there are numbers coming out now that are showing people and older people getting sick from those jabs. Well, they don't say they're from the jabs, but you can see that dying in the world. Are you there? Did I lose you?
I can still hear you.
Oh, this stupid. You there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, if the Wi-Fi here is okay, the Wi-Fi here is pretty spotty. So if you lose me, Jake, it's your show.
Okay.
and you can run with it until I find a way to get back.
All right.
So
who are the usual contenders?
Yeah. So hey, well, you can just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I mean, hopefully I don't lose it, but I don't know. This internet is acting for whatever reason. And this is that Starlink, and for whatever reason, this is that Elon Musk internet company. So
I heard about it.
It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be wonderful. But I'll tell you, it's great. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if the satellite gets lost, but then all of a sudden it's down for like 5 minutes and then you get it back.
Yeah.
So
new companies, they're working out the bugs. Yeah.
So before I forget, I read the mini. Yeah, you're gonna have to email me the books you wrote about your last couple trips. The one on India I really enjoyed, so I'd like to read the other ones as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'll send you one. Did you get the one from West Africa?
No, I've only received the one from India.
Let me send you some more.
Yeah. Yeah. Send it at your convenience. You don't have to do it right now, but you should definitely publish them. They're hilarious, or at least the one I read about India. That's hilarious. It felt like I was there. It made me not want to. It made me not want to go to India.
That means it worked. Yeah.
I was like, this does not sound enjoyable at all. I mean, no. Listen, I can rough it, but to be quite honest with you, at my age now, I don't want to rough it anymore. I want at least a little, running water, a clean room. I'm sorry, man. I've got to have those basics. Otherwise, I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But, learned a lot.
It sounded it. I'll tell you. Yeah, there were a couple things that you described that I was laughing so hard I almost choked. Yeah. But it also reminded me, I travel with my brother. Yeah. Yeah. I travel with my brother to Ireland and traveling with a brother, some families, they have a bond and a relationship where it's like, the brothers are best friends and, they do everything together. And that's, I love my brother and I would do whatever I could for him. But if we travel again together, we'll probably take separate cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
he just would not let me drive.
It was rough. It was, I don't know. With him and I are obviously very different and we're not friends. So my philosophy was, okay, I'm just going to avoid all debates and I'll just, whatever he wants to do. Yep, you can do it. The only thing was the money was like, I don't want to spend any money, and he wanted to spend more than I wanted to. That was kind of a problem, but otherwise, I mean, we made it out okay.
So he wanted to stay at National.
Well, he wanted to go out to restaurants every meal, and he wanted to try all the appetizers, and he wanted to get coffees, and he wanted teas, and he wanted to buy souvenirs and buy this and buy that. I don't like buying anything, so that was kind of, but we made it,
Yeah. Well, what the thing is, Jake, I mean, I would think everything in India is fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, no?
Yeah, that's true. However, if you're in a city like Delhi and you go out to a restaurant that's like designed for Westerners, it'll still be, $20, $10. Whereas if you just eat street food, it's like a dollar. And I was more of the street food style,
Yep.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and it adds up. I mean, he always wanted every meal had to have a coffee. He wanted to.
Well, you just got to be careful when you eat street food.
Oh, I know. We got
that it's actually clean.
We got wild sick. Yeah. Really sick. But it was something. I mean, I came back here and I was like, holy shit, I live like a king. And like, it's crazy. So I would not do it again, but I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
No.
How you doing? Good to talk to you, Brian.
Yeah. A lot going on these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got my cousin on me. He's
What's that? You're saying we're using Starlink right now?
Yeah. There we go. I don't know. David, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there. I hear you loud and clear.
And it's not the most reliable thing.
I wonder if I go outside, it'll be any better.
It keeps. So tell me, Brian, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, I woke up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing.
But no, yeah, it's
Now you're down in the Wilmington area, right?
I'm just north of Raleigh.
Oh, you're north of Raleigh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in a little city called Wake Forest. It's where the original Wake Forest University was.
Okay.
Like we have we have the remnants until one of those rich families donated a bunch of money in Winston-Salem, and then they picked up and moved. And there's like a Baptist seminary there now. There's a college, it's just not Wake Forest.
Yeah, Wake Forest, I mean, obviously I've heard of it. I don't know much about it, but I assume that goes back to the 17 or 1800s.
I mean, I think they left in, it was like the 1950s. So yeah, I'm sure it goes back far. I think I can almost picture the sign in my head, but yeah, it's old.
What do you mean they left?
Well, they went west. They went to Winston-Salem. The whole college picked up and left. The Wake Forest college went because one of those big families, one of our banker families, you know,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the good old United States, you know, the
Yeah,
ones
well,
you're always talking about, you know.
Yeah, well, that Vanderbilt house is over near oh dear God, what's the name of the town
Yeah,
out in
Asheville.
what out near Western North Carolina there, oh my,
Asheville, yeah. It's
Asheville.
beautiful. Yeah, yeah. And you see like there's hotels there. I'm trying to think. It's what is it? What's that place called? I remember because we were out there visiting a friend who was also from Long Island, and he moved his family to Asheville. And I think Obama had just gone there. He stayed at this hotel. What is it called? It's the
It's not called the Vanderbilt.
no. But like all those construction workers and all that talent at the time that was building the Vanderbilt, that house, they were also building lots of other things, you know. So there's some amazing hotels just built out of giant stone, like the whole, just amazing. What is it called? Anyway, it's not really that important. Not compared to what's going on in the world. And what's happening with the have you paid attention to now that the ceasefire's lifted
To be
in
perfectly honest,
Israel?
with you, the short answer is no. It's it, it's it's a perfect example of what's going on with all citizens of the world, because it's I just saw a video where Israel was bombing one apartment building after another, and they're collapsing. And these governments can do whatever they want, and who's going to hold them accountable at some point? You know, big bad Russia. Everybody calls them big bad Russia and big bad whoever. They're going to step in. They're going to step in because nobody else is willing to do it.
Dude, they're gonna lose the whole place. I mean, they really, especially the way people talk like, well, we'll never get involved. Well, not that we are involved,
Oh,
but
we're always involved.
we're always involved. But I mean, as far as our own people actually,
They're there. Yeah, they're there. They're there. Supposedly, this is why I don't follow it because it's so upsetting. Supposedly, the United States has had Special Forces KIA there.
yeah, but some people are saying, well, they're just helping assist, you know, for their attacks. But yeah,
Well,
it's
have
funny too because you were on the right side right from the get go. You know, you were like, and you know, it actually made me look like further into it. And I'm like, you know what? This is like a 9/11 thing. Just stand after we were duped with the Patriot Act. Just walk back and really, all right, what happened to these people? And it's undeniable. And I swear we got into arguments. You get into an
Well,
argument wherever you go
because
if you want.
the fly people in the wrong direction, but it's just between the two of them.
David, are you there?
But I can't get my picture up for some reason.
David, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You can join the conversation with.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm
Okay.
listening.
Don't worry
And
about
my wife is here too.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the video. It's not important. Well, I mean, it'd be nice to see you, but it's right. You can call. So it's.
Hey, David.
Hi, Martha. How you doing?
Hey, good.
Good. I've got Brian, who's on YouTube. He's on the call with us as well. He's from North Carolina, and we were just talking about Israel. Have you guys ever been to Israel?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, so you probably have a better understanding of what's getting blown up over there versus what I know.
Well, he's in
Yeah. Yeah. So Brian was just saying something. What were you saying, Brian, about the KIA over there? And
Well, that was you, but no, just you know, we get these things like that. That flotilla they were talking about coming from Turkey. Is that, has anybody got their eyes? Is that actually happening for support for the Palestinians?
oh, I think it would. I think that we'll definitely hear about, because do you follow Gerald Celente at all?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's the one was bringing that up, and he keeps reminding people that the last time the Turks sent assistance there, the Israeli army killed 10 Turkish soldiers on that ship.
Wow. Yeah.
And that almost caused an international incident. And some people believe that's why Erdogan is sending another flotilla, because he's almost daring them to do it again.
Yeah.
Which will give him an excuse to escalate.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this is what I think of when I see what's going on over there. This is when Dan and I did the readings of the Book of Revelation that's on the channel. The one section that it talks about a 300 million man army coming down from the north into Israel. Not many countries can man 300 million men or people.
Yeah.
Turks,
but there's 1.8
Russia,
billion Muslims in the whole, you know, from there's a lot of them there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Netanyahu, maybe they'll get him to step down.
Well, in technology today, you can see how it's helping the United States and Israel, but technology also works on the other side now. It helps everybody communicate and coordinate a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, they're advancing, but they would you would hear. I was hearing that excuse this week that, oh well, you know, Israel was relying on technology, and that's why they didn't see the attack coming. It was a technology. You know, they're all looking for an excuse when it seems hard to believe that they didn't see this coming. Even they were saying there were guards that were like telling them there's some strange activity going on, but did they just want to let it happen? Was Israel just looking for an excuse?
Well,
we know nobody cares about sacrificing bodies these days.
The criminals, evil is in full control of the earth. Full control.
So.
And that's why I'm in Mexico, because I'm not sure if there was something that I could do, I would do it. But I'm not sure there's anything. I mean, it's going to have to come from somebody with some name recognition, with some power, if there's going to be any changes. Yeah.
But the people in America have just drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking for refills, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's sad. I say, the first thing I say, what I end up saying to them, and they're stunned, I'm like, it's not their land. And I'm like, well, I'll find a group of Indians. They'll be glad to take your house. Why don't you give it back? And then
it's a good analogy.
You know,
it's a good analogy. It's and the other thing is this is why I always go back to the serenity prayer, where it's, dear God, please grant me the serenity to accept those things that I can't change. And the bottom line is, you're not going to be able to change what was done 100, 200, 300 years ago. It's one thing to look back and learn, but it's another thing to try to rectify mistakes that were made long before any of us were born. It's impossible. You'll never move forward. Here's another. I remember I had a disagreement with a family member one time, and I said to my mother, I said, "Hey, should I do this, do this?" And my mother said just a couple words to me. She said, "Less said, sooner mended." And I was like, "What?" And then I thought about it, and I'm like, you can say I'm sorry. You can say, "Hey, listen, let's move on. Let's try to rectify this." But to open up old wounds, it doesn't solve anything.
No, you got to bury the hatchet. That's what I was telling my wife last week. Just bury the hatchet. You could always dig it back up if you have to.
Yeah.
But no, and that's just it. Anybody that lost a loved one during that attack, you're never changing their mind. It's
no, but hey, there are so many examples in history where if you are being oppressed, you will resort to whatever means you have necessary. For example, back in Concord and Lexington, back in 1775, right? When they tried to go toe to toe with the British, they didn't do very well. But when they used guerrilla tactics, they did very well. So they were able to adjust and overcome, by improvisation. And so, I know it sounds horrific, these quote unquote terrorist attacks, but to them it's not terrorism. To them, this is how they have to fight back. And
that's what they're going to call us in America.
Of course, they already did, right? The January 6th, they call them terrorists.
Yeah, and it's like, am I watching a Saturday Night Live skit? I mean, for real? Like they were going to really, even if they were really, that's the way you would go about taking over the country? Come on.
They've known about this for decades. In fact, when 9/11 came across, they pulled out the Patriot Act out of a drawer. I started reading Bill Cooper, and Bill Cooper discovered that a lot of these documents were being written by these think tanks, right? And what they do is they have these draconian measures in a drawer for when things happen. And Rahm Emanuel famously said, "Hey, don't let a
good
go to waste."
To go to waste. Yeah. Bill Cooper, isn't that the guy that was he basically saw 9/11 coming? Didn't they kill him on his front yard?
They sure did.
Yeah, that was the guy.
Get this. He had a radio show, and he was in either Arizona or New Mexico. I think New Mexico. And in June of 2001, I actually have the audio on my channel. He went on his radio channel and he said, "The CIA can't find Osama bin Laden, but CNN just brought a news crew to a cave to interview him." He goes, "Are you people that stupid that you believe this?" He goes, "I'm telling you right now, if there's a false flag and something happens and they blame Osama bin Laden, he's a patsy. It's a setup." And the same day of 9/11, that night, they had already announced it's Osama bin Laden.
Oh yeah, they knew like right away. No.
Yeah.
And if you can't see that, I saw a great little documentary, and it was on It was like a fire, like the fire chief. He was off that day working in Brooklyn, and he watched the whole thing happen. And he was explaining how it took him 10 years, a good 10 years, to finally come grips with Building 7. And after all the people and friends he lost, makes it even harder for you to dig, right? It's just accept it for what they say it is. And it's people come around. It's just like you say, the Patriot Act. We were in North Carolina. It was like George Bush, I guess. It was right around, his, what was it? It must have been like his re-election. It was something. And we wanted to see the motorcade with George. And I remember there were people behind us that had like Patriot Act signs. And we're like, Patriot Act, what? Yeah, it took us a little while to put it all together. But what do you want to do the first day? Kill them. That just, and then Iraq. I mean, we've done so much damage there. And everybody just wants to say, oh, we're just so great. I mean, the people are great, not the ones running it.
Well,
Yeah, it's
part
terrible.
of the Patriot Act is called the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act. And that is the scariest part of the Patriot Act. Well, the scariest part that I think, because what it does is it authorizes the government to take away your civil rights. The Bill of Rights no longer applies to you. All they have to do is call you a terrorist. That's why they added this. They added this word saying, if the government has determined that you are a terrorist, you no longer have constitutional protection. And they can black bag you and take you anywhere, and you don't get your phone call, you don't get your lawyer, you don't get habeas corpus, nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's why they added that, because like you said, all they have to do, Brian, is there's a reason why they were calling those people on January 6th terrorists. It's not an accident that that's the word they use. So when you hear the media or a government figure using the word terrorist, that's the angle they're using. They're going to use the NDAA to take away your rights. And then I joke about this with Dan. All of a sudden there'll be a picture of me on a milk carton, and they'll be interviewing people saying, I always knew there was something about that guy, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are for those of us at our age or older, we're old enough where we can see how far the United States has fallen. We can see it if you're awake. People in their 20s have no clue what the United States used to be.
Hey, what about gold? What about gold closing at an all-time high?
Well, that's history, man. But you'd say, closed over $2,000 for. It's actually shocking that gold is only $2,000 an ounce with the debasement of the currency.
Yeah. I mean, we there's a lot of making up to do. I mean, people could say it's not an investment, but anywhere you put your money is a risk. So wherever you put it.
At least with the gold, you technically can have possession of it.
I'm just amazed that they're allowing it to happen. That all right, they got to give it up. They can't fight everything.
Well, that's it. Is you can print as much U.S. dollars as you want, quote unquote print. You've seen the meme of Powell where he's got the machine and it's going. Brrr. I mean, I think it was one of the previous Fed chairs when he was in front of Congress. I don't know if it was Ron Paul or Rand Paul. I think it was Ron Paul said, "Hey, with all of the debasement of the currency that you're doing, can you guarantee that it's going to, can you guarantee that it's going to maintain its value? And I think it was Greenspan who said, no, he goes, I can guarantee you that we can meet our debt obligations, but in essence, I can't guarantee you that, you know, $1 million is going to be able to buy a loaf of bread, like Weimar, Germany, right?
Yeah. And those were probably that wasn't everybody. That was you know, if it accelerates like that, I mean, I don't even think people, once it gets like to that, who's even gonna, I just can't imagine that, really. My imagination's not that good.
Well, here's a way to envision that, okay? There's a guy named Dr. Chris Martenson, if you're familiar with him. He's with Peak Prosperity. He has a YouTube channel, and he has a video called the effects of compounding. And I've shown this video before. And what it does is it asks, how long would it, if you dropped like an eyedropper full of water and compounded it like every second, how long would it take to fill Yankee Stadium full of water? So if you were locked, if you were handcuffed to the very top seat at the top of Yankee Stadium, how long would you have to get out of those handcuffs before you drowned? And basically, to illustrate the point, he said, when the stadium got to like a quarter full or half full, how long would you have? And it was like 10 minutes, something ridiculous. And that's how, and what he was trying to drive home is what is just a drip, drip, drip. What happens is you get up to a certain point and the move, it's like the hockey stick curves, right? On charts. It happens so quickly that's where the saying comes in. It's better to be a year early than a day late.
Yeah.
Because literally a day late is you missed it completely. There's no getting on that boat.
But there's plenty of people that'll chase it. But I don't even see the people having, like, in other words, people will just, it's like today I was shopping, and I'm sorry, but the beef was so freaking expensive. I mean, I'd rather buy some prosciutto or something and get like a little enjoyment out of eating a fine, you know, thin sliced piece of meat than a damn steak at, you know, over $20 a pound. I'm like, all right, we're going into the chicken and pork department.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand how they're going to sell. Like, all the sell-by dates are so close that and I mean, the racks were filled. And I'm like, I just wonder how much they're losing. And then you'll get to the point where, well, it doesn't pay to fill up the shelves that much, you know, and it's very interesting how this all plays out. You know, like that guy was saying before, oh, we live like kings. I joke about that to my family. I'm like, yeah, we eat like kings. Well, first of all, we're doing it at home. But, you know, I just know one day the shelves they're not going to be as full as they are today.
No, well, you remember what happened during COVID?
We saw it happen.
I mean, the shelves up in New Hampshire, you would all of a sudden, the supermarket up there I remember that they could not source certain products. And I remember they were sourcing them from like other parts of the country. Because what they were is they were replacing them, you know how the generic names are like the store names. And so they're bringing in products from other supermarkets because they couldn't get them locally.
Yeah, I mean, I was seeing brands. There was more like restaurant stuff that they started introducing into our like local food line, and definitely different types of quantities. And oh yeah, everybody's gonna have to push their product somewhere. But otherwise, yeah.
I just want to interject this about Bill Cooper. In addition to what he was warning, because he would not shut up. For those who don't know about Bill Cooper, he was there's a lot. We did a whole video on it, but I'll just say they tried to kill him before. They drove him off the road. He lost his leg in that accident, and he would not shut up about 9/11. And a month after 9/11, tax agents showed up at his house and shot him dead in his driveway.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to get the real story because Cooper's dead. But one of the agents supposedly was killed as well. And I've heard stories that he was actually killed by other agents who, they didn't even know enough not to shoot it across each other, and they killed each other. So.
And when he explains his story being in the Navy, and when he saw the UFOs, did you ever listen to that?
Oh yeah, I read it. I've read about a fifth of the book. It's in a playlist called "Behold a Pale Horse."
Yeah, interesting,
Yep.
interesting guy.
Yeah,
It was a shame. Like when I found out about him, I'm like, man, he was on ham radio for all that time. It's amazing. Things you can miss out on in life. That was one of them.
Well, what they do is that's why you have to, when you hear people out there who haven't been deplatformed, you have to wonder why. Because typically, if you're opposition, they will either, like Julian Assange, right? They'll put you in a cell. The big thing they like to do is they like to try to charge you with some sort of sex crime. You raped somebody, you did this with a child, you did this with a woman, you did this with a man, whatever. They try to get you that way. Well, they couldn't do it with Julian Assange, so they finally got him on some boat. He's not even in prison for anything. He's truly being, what's happening to Julian Assange is one of the biggest travesties in modern times.
And Judge Napolitano talks about him. He was just talking about him the other day, because now they're starting to look at that Rich, what was his name? That murder, the guy who worked for the DNC, and he was murdered.
Seth Rich.
Yeah. Well, that's all starting to come back up now. A judge is ordering the FBI to release some files, and there's been a lot of resistance. So, and that's all.
Yeah, there's evidence on this. There was I don't know which agency this guy was with, who hired two gangbangers to kill Seth Rich. And then this guy killed those gangbangers. And I don't know if that guy is dead. I think he might have had an accident or killed himself conveniently. And I don't remember his name. But, that's when I knew Donald Trump was not what he said, is Trump had a chance to pardon Assange.
He could have pardoned him. And the judge was saying he was begging him to pardon him. But he was also going to release the JFK files.
That's right. He said that when he was running for president, that he was going to Trump made a lot of promises And I'm not sure he did anything he promised.
What would you,
Did he go after Hillary? Remember Hillary for president?
No, it's almost like this. They probably still have dinner together, you know?
Did I lose you?
No, I'm saying they probably still have dinner together. You know what I mean?
You there?
Yeah.
Oh boy, this is a chat. Izzy, how you doing? Click the link above if you want to join. Brian, sorry about that, buddy. I don't know what happened. I just had to wait until the satellite came back into range. Elon Musk, you're charging way too much money. Over $100 a month to have this spotty connection. It's terrible. All right. Well, I would give it a couple minutes because it's, I can only imagine how frustrating it is for anybody who's watching. But it's, unfortunately, this is nothing you can do. There's no hard wires out here. It's all satellite. And if the satellite doesn't want to cooperate, then too bad, so sad. But I'm looking at the connection on this. But yeah, Zodi, sorry about that. Brian, you have a lot of good points. And as far as the issues that we touched on, you know, it's one thing to be aware of everything. And if you're going to be aware, then hopefully you are preparing. Not just financially, but you're preparing yourself as best you can emotionally and spiritually for what's coming. And what I was alluding to before is, you know, if you're over, well, 40 years old, yeah, if you're 40 years old, that means you saw 9/11 because 9/11 was 20. Yeah, so you understood that. If you saw 9/11 and you were aware before 9/11, then you should understand how much the world has changed. Because that's truly when we started going like this as a country. That's when the criminals were in complete control, when they were able to pull that off. And I remember I saw an interview a long time ago. Is it a real interview? Who knows? I don't. But supposedly it was a CIA agent who came forward and I don't know if he was dying or who knows. Again, could be real, might not be. But what he said was that they were so surprised that they were able to pull this off and that there was no backlash. Nobody questioning anything. Everybody bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Even though there were glaring mistakes made, like Building 7, right? BBC sitting there, the woman sitting there saying, we just received a report that Building 7 is collapsed. And it's like right behind her shoulder. And then like a half an hour later, it has a free fall like you see in a demolition. Really? Yep. And then you look into the owners of those buildings and find out how they were basically, the whole thing is so disgusting. That's that's when I knew that we were toast as a country. Now we've just gone from war to another to another. And in any Ponzi scheme, they can never stop the Ponzi. They can't slow it down. They can't reverse it. They have to keep going larger and larger and larger, like that compounding video in reverse. And that's why, if you look at the presidents, every president who comes in, they double the national debt because they have to. Basically, that's what's, it's all this money printing, money spending, money creation that's keeping the system afloat. That's what's doing it. If they stopped, it would all fall apart, all fall apart. And the people who are benefiting from the system don't want that to happen. So they will create whatever reasons they need. Okay, let's spend a few trillion to Ukraine. Okay, let's spend a few trillion to Israel. Let's spend a few trillion to fight the aliens. Whatever they're going to come up with. You know, it'd be nice if they said, hey, let's take a few trillion and put it into infrastructure or real education or healthcare. But they never have money for that. Well, I'm sorry to everybody for these issues, technical issues, and very disappointing. It's hard enough to do these things without having to go down these rabbit holes. Don't get any continuity or consistency at all. Well, one last update. I am still, I was writing book number 2. I have book number 1. It's on Amazon. It's in many of the links on the videos. And if you go to the Amazon link, you can actually read, I think, 80% of the book for free. I set it to what Amazon lets you set as the author. You can set how much of the book you want people to be able to read for free. So I put as much as they would allow me. I set it to the maximum. And so please read the book. Please leave a review on Amazon. That would be appreciated. Buy the book if you like it. I think I make 22 cents. But second book, I started writing about a year ago. And it's a terrifying book. And actually, a lot of what's happening in the United States and the world is actually playing out exactly as I wrote about in many ways. So in March or April, whenever I got sick, April, I think, I stopped writing, and I have not gotten back to finishing. I think I have 10 chapters. And it's a story about the fall of the United States. And I know it's a trite topic, but the way it happens, it's just you see it happening right in front of our eyes right now. There's I'm also working on a story about music. And so I'm bouncing between them. But for the most part, you know, I'm not really working as hard as if it was going to make me money, then I suppose I'd put more time into it. But when I was writing the book, you know, I was writing for 8-10 hours a day. When I was down here in Mexico, I'm missing out on the great weather, and I was like, what am I doing? I mean, you know, it's one thing for an accomplishment, but it's just, it's like, I've said this before, it's like running a marathon. You run your first marathon to see if you can do it. Your second marathon, you pretty much run for time. But after that, you know, what's the reason? You know, there's only so many hours in a day. Okay, so I'm not sure I even have a connection at this point. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.